Hello, my name is Ashati Abinala, the CEO of Media Convergency and a steering committee member of the Innovation and Tech Forum. I'm with my colleague right here.
I think we're bringing together a nice team of experts who are going to give us really good insights and opinions on our topic. And our theme is amazing, building a sustainable startup. What should be done?
We have, of course, Nguvu from Vodacom, Dr. Rasta from DTBI. We have Joseph from the Fungo program. And who else? It's Brian, huh?
We have Brian.
Yeah, we have Brian.
Catherine Rose.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be a very nice conversation today. We look forward to that.
Yeah. And by the way, the topic itself goes in line with our vision of the Innovation and Tech Forum. Like we are targeting at women and youth-led ventures.
Of course, create an environment that's enabling for these target people to be able to flourish in the startup ecosystem.
Exactly.
Yeah, so I think this conversation will be good.
Stay tuned.
Stay tuned.
Karibuni sana na niwapongeze kutenga muda wenu kuja kukutana hapa. Leo tunasema sustainable startup. Tunataka haya makampuni ambayo tunaanzisha yaweze kuishi zaidi ya kesho. Sio kwamba anaanza leo, kesho anakufa. Sasa tafsiri halisi ni ipi? Imeuzwa kwa bei kubwa, imekuwa na impact kubwa kwenye jamii. Kila mtu ana tafsiri yake, lakini kikubwa ni kwamba wote kwa pamoja tushirikiane kuhakikisha kwamba tunakuwa sehemu ya hiyo mazingira ya kujenga. Hiyo tunasema kwamba ni mazingira wezeshi kusudi tuwe na hizo sustainable startup kama ambavyo hiyo theme yetu ya leo inasema. Kwa hiyo bila kupotezea muda, kama nilivyosema, karibuni sana COSTECH na karibuni sana kwenye hili jukwaa la pili. Ninatakie majadiliano mema.
Now, I am pleased to now invite our first round of panelists. Catherine Rose, please briefly tell us a little bit about what Binary Institute of Technology does and what it is.
Binary Institute is a technology engineering focused learning space, and we are based out in Kunduchi. We've been around for a few years now. We focus on systems administration, network engineering, coding as well. We are platform agnostic, so we offer a lot of platform support and learning. But I think what also we do is we have a focus on building communities.
Or what would you think is the role and significance of human capital or teams in creating a sustainable startup?
If you could own a football team, what would you do? How would you pick your team? How would you pick your players? How would you pick your coach? How would you pick your team management? Think of it in the same way as a startup. Would you pick your family and friends or your neighbor? Or would you look specifically for skill? So you would look specifically for skill, right? If you're going to have the best team in the EPL. It's the same, I think, for a startup. So what is needed is skill. And I know Nema's going to say, but as a startup, you don't have money. I agree. As a startup, you don't have money. You don't have money to hire Joseph from Fungo to come and lead your team, right? But there are other ways you can get around this. And I think if you flip it around, you think about what do you need? You need a solid base. Think about yourself as a founder, and then think about where your gaps are. If you're a developer, for example, you can't be the finance person, you can't be the legal person, you can't be the admin person. So that's what you need. Once you identify your gaps, you figure out where to get them. The other thing I think to think about is define your culture for yourself. Don't let your funder define your culture for you. You define your own startup culture. You define your own mission. Once you know your startup culture and your mission, it makes it easier to hire people that believe the same things as you, that have the drive that you want them to have. If you as the founder understand what these roles are, it means that you can put a structure in place.
From your observation, what would you think is the sustainability for women in technology?
I remember when I first was at my first meeting in this building, and I was sitting around the table and I was the only woman. And I realized it was really lonely because every single person around that table was wearing a suit. Average age must have been 50, and I was a lot younger and not wearing a suit. And so I think what I've learned is it's important to build relationships and build a support system for yourself. It's difficult to go up to somebody and say, could you help me? Could I call you if I'm in trouble? Could I call you to help answer a question? But you have to find the courage, because I think if you have the network, it makes navigating space easier. One of the things that I try to focus on all the time is that, yes, I should be in that room, I belong at that table, and that I'm just going to focus on doing what I do really, really well. And as I do it, as you climb, you lift other people up with you. So if I think about that first day in that room upstairs where I was the only woman, it became intentional for me every single day to make sure other women are in this space. So if I get invited to a cocktail party, for example, I find somebody who's got a business, a woman, to take with me. And then we work on her business cards. And my goal is, before we leave that networking event or cocktail party, that she has met 3 people and she's given her card to 3 people. If you don't know, ask. Find someone to ask, whoever it is. And if we don't ask, we can't grow because we don't know where our gap is.
Now, over to you, Brian. Understanding that sometimes, or most of the time, strategic partnerships help early stage startups in building their businesses, and of course, accessing capital as one of the things.
So people are really eager to listen to people who actually offer value. And I think maybe everyone, yani ukiwa mdogo sio mkubwa, I was actually listening to this kid juzi, and nikimsikiliza I'm like, huyu mtoto atafika mbali, kwa sababu from young age yeye hafikiri kwamba how many people watanisaidia, yeye anafikiria tu kwamba mimi what value am I offering, and trust me, you'll get so many partnerships, whether it's monetary partnerships, whether the people ambao they just want to grab and actually help you. Like anyway, to me it's like, think every time, what value am I bringing on the table?
Now over to you, Dr. Erasto. Being the CEO of Datek Nohama Business Incubator, I'm sure you interact with a number of startups. What would you say are the main challenges that startups face in regards to leveraging on technology in sustainability?
We are working with Phone Hub. So most of the time, those who come with an idea, they join first in the Boon Hub to develop a prototype. So once they have a prototype, then they can join the DTBI. The challenge to them is more relating to regulatory authorities. As you know, for this novel business, which are on innovations, you may find there is no regulation which is taking care of that particular products. So now we as a government, especially the COSTECH, we do guide the startups on these challenges. Like if they are for TRI, they ask them to have a physical address. So we provide the incubation, and they can use the physical address from COSTECH. So now they can proceed with the registration of their startup. And because there's a startup, like the sustainability of startup, is maybe we need to define, because what is the life cycle of the startup? For us in DTBI, once they join as a startup, they need to grow. The growth is determined in 3 levels. The first level is the strategy to go to the market. The second level is how much they can return in a month. And the third level, now the connection. So once they go to that level, now they can grow to the next stage to become a company, of which now there's a lot of requirement about registration, of which we do support them. There is a requirement to be introduced, of which we support as the government. If they require something for registration in BRELA, we do support them. So there are other requirements like legal requirements, financial support, and those kind of things. When they are under incubation at the DTBI, they get those support.
Or what do you think is the role of technology in ensuring that these startups are sustainable?
Yeah, when we talk about sustainability in technology, is the ownership of the technology. Ownership of the technology is about the intellectual property, of which it has different levels. We are talking for structured one, we're talking about patent, for those are patentable. And for those which are dealing with business about trademark. And if maybe someone has come with something which is very specific for here, for just in Tanzania, it's geographical indication. So if you are able to own, then you can sell to anyone. That this is my technology. You need not even to commercialize by yourself. You can choose to license. So most of the startups, you find they go quickly to the market as a traditional product. They send as a traditional product. And you'll be noted that most of the companies which are very successful in the world, they are selling intellectual properties. Or you can even interact, maybe find a way to cooperate under license. So what we are doing now, we are establishing technology innovation support centers in most of the research development institution and higher learning institution. And this I may make it a call to startups to even join the effort of the government to be part of the technology innovation support centers. Because through that we will be able to interact with the WIPO, the World Intellectual Property Organization, and even the regional intellectual property organization, ARIPO, so that we will be able to own our innovation. So that part of owning innovation is very important and it is sustainable.
I think maybe we should also look into that, try to get to understand how we can convince people to bring them on board while we are not able yet to afford their skill set.
If you bring somebody on board as an advisor, maybe for your board, give them a specific time that you need them. So say, I need you for 12 months, but I'm not going to call you every day. Maybe once a month we can do a call. Maybe that's something that could work. And I think if you think about, if you have mentors, is to ask your mentors to reach into their network and ask them to see if there's anyone that will be willing to give you time for something. And I think that could also work. Because you're right, it is expensive to bring on someone like Joseph, right? But if you appeal to Joseph's softer side, and so you could do, I'm using you as an example, Joseph, but what I'm just saying is the head of Fungo might not have time to give you, but the next person who wants to kind of give back, they could possibly say yes. I'm willing to give you a couple of hours a month. But I think the other thing is don't be afraid to ask. Because if you don't ask, you don't know if the person will say yes. And the other thing that I like to include in the asking is, I say to them, if you can't do it, can you point me in the direction of somebody who can?
I think moja is understanding yourself, understanding your weaknesses. Kwa mfano kama if you want to bring a co-founder, understanding even mimi, what are the things I can't do. The second thing to me convincing people is, I don't know, that's just me, focus on short-term commitments than long-term commitments. Just kwa sababu, allow yourself to grow.
My name is Newstar Tineshemo from Newstar Brand. I have one question for Mr. Erasto. You said in the growth, you consider 3 levels. So in those levels, I need to know those levels because at the 3rd levels, it's connection. What if someone have a connection, but she don't have the startup very well of what she done or what she want to do? But she have or he has a connection. And you said as TBI, you have to organize maybe to the government of Tanzania to have the startup policy, as you said. It's fine, we can do it, but we have also to make sure that even young people, even women, or everyone who wants to start up to know what to do before he or she starts? Maybe we can start with there.
Yeah, thank you for a wonderful question. If you have connection, so we need to define which connection do you have. Here we are talking of innovation intermediaries. So you come with your new idea, you want to find your way to market. So if the connection you have, what to its maturity level, imeshafikia hatua gani? Kama kweli wewe una connection ya kuwa imejitosheleza, basi unakuwa huna haja tena ya kuja kuwa supported kwenye incubation. Maana tayari umeshaiva. Maana hapo tunajua una connection na masoko, una connection na vyanzo vya resources, wale investors ambao wapo kwenye different levels. Kuna wale ambao ni wanasema ngoja ukajaribu hiyo biashara yako. Manake most of the startup unakuta yule anayesema ndio founder anakuwa penginepo ametumia hela yake au hela ya ndugu zake au marafiki. Maana unavyokuja na new product unaingia nayo sokoni, watu hawaifahamu. Kila mmoja na wasiwasi kusema labda haitafanikiwa. Kwa hiyo hakuna mtu wa nje ambaye yuko tayari kuweka hela yake pale. Sasa umetumia hela yako ndio unaingia sokoni. Kwa hiyo kama unakuwa na connection za kwenye different level za ecosystem, basi wewe unakuwa huja qualify kuwa kwenye nini? Kwenye incubation. Lakini kwa nature ya wale incubate wengi tuliowapokea, wao ni innovator. Yeye anachojua tu amekuja na suluhisho ambalo lina address matatizo ya jamii husika. Hicho ndio anakijua. Sasa masuala ya business model yeye hata hafahamu. Kwa hiyo ndio nature hiyo tumewapata, inakuta wanahitaji wapate mentorship ya kuweza kudevelop business model ambayo itaweza kumsaidia kupata mapato. Kwa hiyo unakuta sasa hapo inabidi sasa tuanze kusema okay, idea yako hii ili uweze kuwafikia walengwa uliowapata, 1, 2, 3 inabidi vifanyike. Halafu ile product yake kuna packaging ambayo inakubalika sokoni. Kwa hiyo unakuta sasa nitakiwa kumlinki na watu ambao ni wataalamu wa kufanya packaging. Kwa hiyo unakuta sasa kwa watu kama wanakuja inabidi tuwalinki. Halafu inakuja kwenye kitu kingine ambacho kinakuwa ni changamoto zaidi. Unavyoingia, manake hatuna sheria inayolinda startup kusema utapata likizo ya kodi. Kwa hiyo ukiingia unakutana nazo. Kwa hiyo unakuta sasa kwa zile hatua za mwanzo ni kuanza kumwandaa tunaye hapa ili apate nafasi ya kuweza kufanya nini? Kwenda mwenyewe huko nje. Akiwepo hapa anachokipata, anapata ulinzi, yeye haingii gharama. Halafu kuna utility, anatumia umeme, anatumia na vitu vingine. Ile akina naambiwa kusema hivi vitu unavyovitumia ukitoka nje utahitaji kuwa navyo. Kwa hiyo inamaanisha sasa ile connection ambayo tunakuja kuwasaidia kwamba utakuwa na mahitaji zaidi ya ile product yako. Inatakiwa ile environment iwe rafiki. Ile environment ya kufanya business environment lazima uweze kuiestablish. Kwa hiyo ndio ukuta kwenye hiyo level lazima tunasema kuna level ya kuwasaidia kwenye connection. Lakini kama mtu yuko well off, ameshafikia kwenye connection, let's say ndio unaingia kwa kampuni. Maana tunapokea na makampuni kwa ajili ya incubation. Sasa wewe tutakuuliza unataka incubation kwa ajili gani? Sasa ile unachokihitaji wewe ndio kitakachokuwa addressed. Mara nyingi wengine labda nature ya product yake inatakiwa afanye kazi na serikali. Kwa sasa connection ambayo tutatakiwa sasa kumtambulisha kusema bwana hii product kwa nature consumer yeye ni public. Kwa hiyo inatakiwa labda aweze kusaidia wapate ile trust. Kwa hiyo nature hiyo tunaweza tukawasaidia.
And I think pia inategemea what are you exactly looking for. Mfano if you if you're looking for a co-founder, it will be tofauti. The search will be different if you're looking for maybe an advisor, all right? Kwa hiyo maybe binafsi I feel like you need to understand yourself very well, and I feel like maybe just from my own journey we don't spend a lot of time understanding ourselves. Kwa hiyo hata unavyoomba mara nyingi you just think you have a problem, like maybe most of the time you don't. So that nikiwa naomba kama kazi nasema I'm asking for something very specific kwa sababu moja, I've actually spent a lot of time understanding myself. Even in a business, understanding the business. Kwa sababu if I go to a very direct question, can you show me maybe I'm failing here exactly, it's very easy for people to actually offer advice over nini than these really blanket statements. But I think moja is understanding yourself, understanding your weaknesses. Kwa mfano kama if you want to bring a co-founder, understanding even mimi, what are the things I can't do. The second thing to me convincing people is, I don't know, that's just me, like focus on short-term commitments than long-term commitments. Just kwa sababu allow yourself to grow. Come on, allow yourself to jua kwamba what I'm actually getting right now might not be the person, might not be the idea, might not be the thing I want to even do in the future. So if I don't know, alafu na get into these really long-term commitments, moja, even if I feel like I need to get out, most of the time becomes very painful. So I think to me one of the things is allow yourself to grow, get into commitments you can actually get out, and because you're also doing the other person a favor, not being in these really long commitments ambazo is painful for everyone. Hata kwa mentors, you get into a commitment ambayo there's no exit clauses, and then now your mentor hates you akipokea simu, like look, I just want you for the next 4 weeks to help me in this thing, are you okay? Then they know kwamba there's an exit clause, and baada ya 4 weeks imeisha, we can go into another agreement, like after 4 weeks imeisha. So hata learn kwamba you also need to grow, and things might change, and it's okay.
We've heard about the importance of human capital and how we can onboard the right people that we need. We've also heard about how we can position ourselves in order to get the best out of strategic partnerships. But we've also heard about the importance of owning our technologies and protecting and leveraging on our IP assets as startups, which I think is very important. So thank you very much to our amazing speakers. Now let's hear from the experts who have developed or are part of programs that are geared in developing these sustainable startups.
Fungo was just a result of the discussion that was happening within the innovation ecosystem, that we needed a follow-on program or initiative after the closure of the HDIF. That was the UK aid-funded program that had been running for over 7 years. Well, what HDF was doing then was basically financing innovations within health, education, water and sanitation, but also building a wider innovation ecosystem through engagement, working with the government, we're working with COSTECH, and we initiated the largest innovation ecosystem event, Innovation Week, for some of you have been to it. So there were quite a number of other engagement coming up with innovation challenge and stuff. So people saw value in that, and they thought maybe it wouldn't be a good thing just to close and then go home. So we started working with the partners, and Fungo was born. So what Fungo is doing, it's a program we took over from HDIF, but it's going to be slightly different. We're still going to do 3 different things. That's innovation financing, because that's something that has been identified as one of the key gaps within the innovation ecosystem. And the second part is about the innovation service delivery. In this, we are looking at all the partners, like BDS providers, innovation hubs, accelerators, consultants who work with innovators. Like, do they actually know what the innovators need, and are they equipped to be able to serve the innovators better? So we are looking at how we can contribute towards that, strengthening that. And lastly is what Dr. Nungu touched on, the innovation enabling environment. I think that's something which is really can actually talked about in every sphere of business. So we'll be working with the policymakers, private sector stakeholders, development partners, to intervene in such a way that we can at least contribute to the betterment of the innovation, the enabling environment, which is going to make innovators and startups at least be able to grow and be sustainable. When it comes to innovation financing, the focus is going to be on startups. HDF was more on most of the beneficiaries were NGOs because the sectors we're looking at. But this time around, it's going to be sector agnostic. We're not going to focus on any particular sector as long as it's an innovation. It's a startup which has got an innovative business model and is geared towards touching on some of the development impact SDGs, looking at least one. So that's why we call them innovation ventures or impact ventures, something like that. So briefly, that's Funguo.
When we reflect on sustainability, what would you say that startups are doing wrong, and what would you say that startups are doing right in building sustainable startups in Tanzania?
Maybe it's important to talk about the wider ecosystem of everybody around the startup, including the founders, including the funders, including the support systems, hubs, and everything, policymakers. I remember, I think it was last year or sometime this year, I was having a discussion with one of the policymakers, and for him, he was not convinced that there is a need of a startup act or startup policy. He's like, but we have an SME policy that should be able to cater for startups. So we had that discussion. Let's first of all talk about a startup. What does it mean? Because SMEs are not necessarily, there could be some SMEs that are startups, because SME is just a matter of the size of the of organization. A startup is all about a business model. It's about the market that they do serve. It's about the future outlook. It's not about the size. It's not about whether it's MSME, it's a SME or large company. So that's something that we need to start from. And then we have to go further, look at, okay, what kind of support do startups need? So that's where Funguo comes in, that also other partners who are actually working in this ecosystem, looking at what are we doing that's going to contribute positively to provide an environment where a startup can be able to thrive. You look at the funding, you look at the support system, you look at the enabling environment, and you have to identify, once we have known who a startup are, like what can actually work for them. I think Dr. Erasto touched on the issue of taxation, for instance. We know that's a problem. And that's not only for startups, that's for anyone who starts a business in Tanzania. Because we know that if we get a large investor coming out from outside, they're already given tax holidays and stuff. Why can't that be accorded to startups? Because they're also starting something which is going to grow. We know that there are some of the things that, some of the things when it comes to registration that have to be imposed. Like, okay, maybe this probably was relevant many years ago, it's no longer relevant. Why would you need that you have to have a physical office to be able to register a startup? But without having a policy which clearly clarifies what startup is, what kind of business that environment is right now, we cannot advocate for that kind of legislation. So that's why most of the discussion right now is like, let's clarify what actually startups are, what their needs are, and then let's move forward with what can actually be done.
Tell us more about the Vodacom Accelerator Program and what has been Vodacom's major learning in regards to sustainable startups that have passed through the Accelerator Program.
At Vodacom, we decided to support startups that are aligning with our strategies through the pillar that we think that strategically those are the areas that can have big impact to the society, in agriculture, of course, fintech, as well as education, health services, to mention a few.
What were the major changes you had observed from these startups?
Yeah, the first 15 startups who were selected from over 500 applications from each corner of the country. We saw very, very encouraging results. that made us to continue with the program. I think is the ability for startup to continue with their roadmap executions, which is not disturbed in one way or the other, whether it's on the funding point of view or it's the lack of resources. Relevance and also scalability is critical. The problem you're addressing, it has to be within your society. Here, people are complaining that they no water. Let's really stick on relevance.
The biggest challenge that we face, or innovators face, is that when they come up with ideas, they are asked about how they are going to tackle the challenge, but in monetary value. As stakeholders, what do you do in advising or in coaching these startups on the way how to transfer the way they want to impact the community, or to change or to tackle that challenge in the community in monetary values?
There are some guidance in terms of what really you should put into stake or at disposal if you are looking to get more money and you have your minimum viable product and you are unable to convert into shillings or dollars.
Well, I get that. I think it depends on who you're approaching in the first place. And second, it all depends on the kind of stakeholder you have gone to. Because one, for instance, here we're talking about startup sustainability. When we are talking about an idea, we are not at the startup level yet, right? Because for you to get to a startup level, it means you have an idea that works, which now you have combined with entrepreneurship kind of spirit, and then you are going to turn that into a company. Startup is at the company level. So you're already in business, although you might not be making money, at least the business exists around the idea that you had. But there are so many ideas that never get to the startup level. Yeah. So second, I think you may want to say probably not all the ideas or are meant to make money, because probably the kind of problem you're solving is more of a social problem, not necessarily geared towards becoming a company making money. Which in this case, I would advise whoever that guy has that kind of idea, if they really strongly believe in it and they have validated it with their friends and others, there are always organizations that are working in that particular area you're looking at.
What if there's maybe an idea that does not really apply according to your rules and regulations to your program, but that idea, maybe concept, will be not visible at this moment, but can be visible in the future?
We welcome all ideas, whether they relate with our telecom technology or not.
This big company,
yes,
at least kwenye tenda mnazotoa per year, labda 30% inaenda kwa startup ambazo wanajua kufanya. Kwa mfano mtu anafanya marketing, ameanzisha kampuni ya startup kwa marketing, pelekeni hela pale. Yule mtu taratibu atagrow, baadaye itakuja kuwa kampuni kubwa. Lakini kwa sasa hivi mnafanya kazi na makampuni makubwa. Kwa hiyo vijana huko wameanza chini, hawana mwanga.
Okay.
Hawapati zile funds.
With regards to how are we going to empower startups to ensure that we give upfront some funds so that they register and they comply with all the necessary requirement before starting working with us. I think that's something that we can take into consideration, and we can try to see how we can fast track it, because sometimes it takes too much time for some of the registration to be done, of which it may impact our delivery when it comes to product and services.
But it's a challenge that you are giving to Nguvu, because not just Vodacom, but also big corporates, government, development partners, NGOs. I think if we really say that we want to support youth-led businesses, which in most cases are startups, we have to go back to our policies to say, like procurement policies. We are seeing that happening in other countries. We know that in Kenya there's even a law that any government procurement, 30% has to go to youth-led businesses. So I think that's the kind of discussion that's going on right now. I think it started even within NEC's leading good discussion about local content in almost all businesses right now. So I think that at least the conversation has started. Maybe it's a matter now of going further to the likes of Vodacom, that when you talk about CSR, it's not just about giving money, but you can actually give businesses to these startups for them to grow. So that can easily complement the other initiatives like Vodacom Accelerator and the others. Any defect in all those four aspects, I think that could be a tell sign that it's not going anywhere. You might have like a great idea, a great innovation that has got the potential to grow, but you, in your recruitment, just I think that's something that Catherine Rose touched on. You've just put together a group of friends and probably just have only the same capabilities, no complementarities. I mean, definitely it's something you can address in the future, but if that doesn't get addressed, the idea is not, then the innovation is going to go anywhere, the startup. But I think you also look at the kind of market you're operating in. For instance, let's say if there is a great startup that starts today and what they're trying to do is something that is being done by Vodacom. Definitely, there is no way that you are going to have a muscle to compete against an established organization like that. So the kind of market you're operating on, and if it's not like growing, it's not a scalable kind of market. Startups don't feature so well in that. Lastly, I think it's also the kind of attitude that we actually see, because one of the greatest aspects and positive aspects of startups, they are led that by like really passionate people. Like the way they believe into something is going to actually drive it further. But the moment we see that that passion is no longer there, that maybe you have got a good tender and you are now into something else which is not driven to growing the business, I think that should actually be a tell sign to someone observing from the outside. It's something that maybe you might not be able to see from the inside, but somebody say, okay, maybe this one I'm not quite sure whether in the next 2 years it's going to exist.
If you are in you have got a startup and you and your partner, you're all lacking discipline, definitely that will won't survive.
Thank you very much to our amazing panelists. Can we give them a round of applause, please?
Asanteni sana, thank you so much to the speakers. Muda wenu, we understand it's evening. But of course, I would say this again and again, that we chose the evening because we ran a poll and we had 3 times, and the evening was suggested as the best time to have this meeting. The other thing is that the next meetings in the near future will be spent, will be a sort of systematic throughout the year, because it's going to be every end of Friday after every 2 or 3 months. So right now we are happy that we have a governance in place to make sure that we have these conversations sustainably, and we really thank our enablers, which are COSTECH and UNDP through the Funguo program. As Media Convergence, we are just the coordinators. The governance of what is to be done, the content, how we can do it, and everything is under the steering committee and the advisory board.